the hidden science of high-performing teams. Welcome back to Innovation Insights. Today we're diving deep into something that affects every organization, but is rarely discussed with the nuance it deserves: team composition and performance. With us is Hue Nguyen, who has led engineering teams across continents and industries. Hue, let's start with a bold statement. You've said that the best teams aren't built on spreadsheets. What do you mean?
Well, that's exactly the trap I see everywhere. Leaders get so focused on checking boxes, we need X% of this, Y% of that they forget we're dealing with humans, not statistics. I remember working with this one team in Japan, brilliant engineers, all of them, but they kept hitting walls on a car navigation project. Same thinking patterns, same blind spots. When we brought in colleagues with different backgrounds and perspectives, suddenly we were seeing problems we'd been staring at for months. It wasn't magic, it was just different brains looking at the same challenge.
You've mentioned observing a 15 to 35% performance boost in gender-balanced teams. That's significant. But you also caution against treating this like a recipe. Can you elaborate?
Exactly. Those numbers are real. I've seen them play out across projects from Nestle's e-commerce platforms to banking applications at VIB. But here's what the research doesn't capture. It's not the gender balance itself that creates the magic. It's the cognitive diversity that often comes with it. Think about it. When you have team members who've grown up with different social experiences, different ways of communicating, different risk tolerances, you get this beautiful collision of perspectives. Women often catch risks that men overlook, and vice versa. But it only works if you create an environment where people actually feel safe to speak up.
Psychological safety, that's a buzzword these days. But you've actually built these environments. What does it look like in practice?
Oh, this is where it gets interesting. I learned this the hard way early in my career. You can have the most diverse team on paper, but if the loudest voice always wins, you're just window dressing. Real psychological safety means setting up systems where introverted team members can contribute just as effectively as extroverted ones. It means celebrating the person who asks stupid questions that reveal fundamental flaws in your assumptions. I always tell my teams the most dangerous phrase in technology is, "That's how we've always done it."
You've worked across very different cultures, Japan, Southeast Asia, with global clients. How does cultural context affect team dynamics?
This is where it gets really fascinating. In Japan, there's this concept of nemawashi, building consensus behind the scenes before formal meetings. Initially, I thought this was inefficient, but I learned that diverse teams actually need these informal spaces to process ideas before public discussions. What works in a Silicon Valley startup might completely fail in a Vietnamese bank or a German automotive company. The key insight is that high-performing teams aren't one-size-fits-all. You have to adapt your approach to the cultural DNA of your organization while still maintaining those core principles of cognitive diversity.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room: quotas and mandates. You seem to have mixed feelings about them.
Look, I understand why they exist. Sometimes you need external pressure to break through institutional inertia. But here's my concern. When you're optimizing for compliance instead of performance, you can actually harm the very people you're trying to help. I've seen situations where someone gets promoted or hired, and everyone knows it's to hit a diversity target. That person carries an invisible burden. They have to work twice as hard to prove they belong. It's unfair and counterproductive. Instead, focus on removing barriers. Ask yourself, why aren't diverse candidates making it through our hiring process? Why aren't different voices being heard in our meetings? Fix the systemic issues, and the numbers often take care of themselves.
You mentioned that 40 to 60% seems to be a sweet spot for representation. Where does that come from?
That's based on observations across multiple projects and some fascinating research from MIT and other institutions. Below 30%, you often get tokenism. The minority voices get overwhelmed or feel pressure to conform. Above 70%, you can lose some of the cognitive tension that drives innovation. But, and this is crucial, these aren't hard rules. I've seen brilliant teams that were 80-20 in either direction. The real metric isn't the ratio, it's whether different perspectives are actually influencing decisions.
So, how do leaders know if they're getting it right?
Great question. I look for what I call productive friction. Healthy teams argue, not about personalities, but about ideas. You want to see respectful debate, not groupthink. Also, pay attention to who's speaking in your meetings. If it's always the same voices, you have work to do. I sometimes use this simple test. After a brainstorming session, I ask each team member privately what ideas they didn't share. You'd be amazed how many brilliant insights stay locked up because people don't feel comfortable speaking up.
Looking ahead, how do you see this evolving with remote work and AI?
I think this is where it gets exciting. Remote work actually democratizes participation in some ways. Introverted team members often contribute more in digital environments, but it also creates new challenges around informal relationship building. As for AI, it's going to amplify the importance of human cognitive diversity. AI is great at pattern recognition within existing datasets, but breakthrough innovation often comes from combining patterns that seem unrelated. That's where diverse human perspectives become even more valuable.
Any final advice for leaders watching this?
Stop trying to solve this with PowerPoint slides and start with one simple question. Whose voice haven't I heard lately? Then create space for that voice to be heard. And remember, building high-performing diverse teams isn't a destination, it's a practice. Like any skill, it gets better with deliberate effort and honest reflection. The companies that figure this out aren't just going to have better workplaces. They're going to have better products, better customer relationships, and better bottom lines. That's not idealism. That's just good business.
Nuan, thank you for sharing these insights with us today.
Thank you for having me. Keep building those brilliant, messy, beautifully diverse teams out there.